Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Kerie Logan. Mrs. Kerie, how are you doing, ma?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you
Th-
for asking.
Thank you so much also for the opportunity, Mrs. Kerie. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a certified clinical hypnotherapist, and you are also a NLP practitioner. Can you please, Mrs. Kerie, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Kerie?
So, I am a clinical certified hypnotherapist, and as you said previously, an NLP practitioner. I'm also an author, blogger, podcaster, and a empowerment strategist, and I also am a human consciousness guide. And as the subject we're going to talk about today is intuitive hypnotherapy and using my intuitive abilities to work with clients and people all over the globe. So that's kind of me in a nutshell right there.
Thank you so much for the insights, Mrs. Carey. I would also like to know from your experience as a phototherapist. Have you written any book, or are you planning to write any book in the coming future, Mrs. Carey?
Yes, I am.
All right, so we'll definitely be expecting that. Thank you so much, Mrs. Carey. Firstly, I would like to dive to the point of intuitive hypnotherapy, Mrs. Carey. There are a lot of hypnotherapy, but when it comes to intuitive hypnotherapy, there will definitely be other things that features that it might have. So, from your experience, Mrs. Carey, can you please dive us like what do you think is intuitive hypnotherapy, and how do you think it has differ from traditional hypnotherapy, Mrs. Carey?
So, traditional hypnotherapy, a lot of people will use a script. And I have a file cabinet full of scripts. And people use those scripts. And when it comes to intuitive hypnotherapy, it's like 1,000 times better. Anyone will vouch for it. I mean, when you experience it, you can't unexperience it. So here's a good example is I had a woman get a hold of me that had wanted to clear her throat because she kept clearing it, clearing it. She thought she had a medical issue. She was struggling with her throat. And I don't know if you've heard about this book. It's called The Secret Language of Your Body. But when you look it up in the section about throat, it said a lot to her. And she was like, oh my God, I never thought about that. And so when I broke it down to her and I was telling her that, yes, this is, what's going on with your throat. Let me find where it is right here. I'll tell you the section. Here we go, throat. So I said, these are the probable contributing factors to what's going on with your throat. And it is difficulty communicating, low self-esteem, self-doubt, self-sabotage, feeling down, misunderstood, held back, fearful, frustrated, unworthy, difficulty trusting. And when I read all that to her, she was like, oh my God, yes. So when this happened was after she broke up with someone that was extremely toxic. And she had a history of dating narcissistic men, superficial men, people that were alcoholics. And she confessed that she was very codependent and wants to take care of people. And I was like, ooh. And here was the kicker, though. She always left those men, but the last person that she ended up breaking up with, he dumped her. And she'd never been dumped before. And she said, I got so heartbroken, I fell apart. And I said, yes, because then it triggered your core wounds of, I'm not good enough. I don't matter. And I can't even take care of this guy that's completely broken and damaged, and he rejected me. So it was a blow to her feminine ego. And all of this was coming in intuitively, intuitively. And I said, you seriously need to thank your throat for stopping you because you would have found another guy that would do the same exact thing. And she said, that's so weird you say that because my therapist said the same exact thing. So everything I was saying her, and this was my first time meeting her, she was like, wow, because I was reading her. I was literally like realizing that, this was a huge blow to your self-esteem, and that you have this need to pick wounded, damaged puppies, men that are just broken, to feel a sense of self. And I said, so when did you first meet someone that was like that? And she said, I was 16 years old. And the guy was so dishonest, but I stayed with him for 3.5 years, all throughout high school. And I was like, oh my God. And what was weird is this woman is so successful in her whole career, financially successful, business successful, but she doesn't know how to set boundaries with people. When she's around a strong man, she feels like they look down upon her. And I said, yeah, because he's secure in who he is, and you can't fix him, and he doesn't want you to fix him. So when we had that whole talk, what I did was, I call a parts therapy, and that's part of NLP. And this was all intuitive, no script, anything. It's sit in front of my mic. What do you want me to say to this woman? And so I called in the 16-year-old and I talked to her and I said, you learned a really bad habit, a really bad trait of wanting to help men that are damaged. And they're never going to change. And you deserve so much more. So much more. You deserve happiness, love, trust, honesty, acceptance. And then I called in the part of her a year ago that got heartbroken and fell apart by that other guy. And I had a conversation with her. And then I had the three of them, imagine they're on the beach talking to one another and actually becoming stronger and joining the main personality. And it was so fascinating because she went so deep. She's like, I didn't hear anything you said. And the whole session was 30 minutes. She's like, I went so deep. And yes, she was fighting it, and I could tell she was fighting it. So they told me this is how you get her to relax, because she's fighting the process. And then I did that. And then at the end of the process, she wasn't going like this all the time, trying to clear her throat. She was like, oh my God, my throat is clear. And the whole 15 minutes that she was, after the session and was walking out to her car, she's like, this is so bizarre. And I said, yes, it was mental and emotional. It wasn't a physical ailment. It wasn't. And even her therapist told her the same thing, like, you dodged a bullet, because that guy that dumped her, like she said, the day before he dumped me, he was like, I love you so much, you're the most wonderful woman in my life, and I want to marry you and let's live together. And then the next day he dumps her.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Kerie, for this insight. Thank you so much. Honestly speaking, it is very powerful, and that shows the power of intuitive hypnotherapy. We do know that a lot of emotions run with women, so when they have some situations like that, they have to need someone who can guide them, someone like you, like you've done earlier, that could put them through and tell them these are what you need to know, and these are the features you need to find when you are in this type of situation. And that is the value or the importance of this intuitive hypnotherapy. Definitely, you've helped the woman in many ways. And even in her next time or the next man she's going to meet, she's definitely going to look for several ways she could, things or the errors she's seen during the last time she could implement. Thank you so much for the story and the insight, Mrs. Kerie. And I also like to dive to what someone would expect, like what you said during the story of the woman. There could be future someone needs to, expect when they're having this type of session. So, what do you think someone can expect to feel or to see during this session, Mrs. Kerie?
Expect that I'm going to say things that you would never expect me to say. The best way to put it is, someone said to me once, I expected to come see you and have a coffee conversation, and in 10 minutes, you took me to the deep end of the ocean. You called me out on all my crap. How do you do that? And I didn't even have to share it. You just knew it. How do you do that? And I said, because you're ready for it. And I sit here and I listen to you but then I listen to divine guidance that's speaking to me because it knows you better than you know yourself.
Hmm.
And so I don't advertise what I do. I want someone to actually experience it. So here's another good example, and I've shared several times, is I worked with a Catholic nun, and she flat out told me if the church knew I was here getting help for my PTSD, they'd kick me out of the convent. But in 2 sessions, her PTSD went away. And even this woman, she's like, do you know God talks to you? And I was like, how do you know? And she said, because when I was listening to you sitting in your chair, everything you were describing, I saw it before you said it. I was actually there. She's like, how do you do that? And I said, because the first 30 seconds, while you're listening to music, I'm praying. I'm connecting to you. I'm connecting to the heavens above. I'm connecting to the wisdom of the universe and help me. And I set my intention. That's the most important thing. I set my intention to heal this person, and whatever guidance needs to flow through me to heal this person mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, psychologically, give me that wisdom. And that's my prayer in the beginning of the 30 seconds. And I know when I'm connected, I like feel it. And then that's when I start talking, or I should say they start talking. It's like they speak to me and it just flows out of me. What does this person need to hear? And I love it. It's the most beautiful thing that I do. And I hardly ever use scripts anymore. And if I need to use a script, they'll tell me ahead of time, hey, you need to do this. So for the woman that I just described about the throat clearing, she needed some self-sabotage. So I pulled out a script that I had, just, like maybe 3 paragraphs about self-sabotage that she needed to hear because what she was doing was sabotaging herself.
Completely agree, and that shows the beautiful gift you have. Honestly speaking, to just definitely see and also speak what someone does not really expect, and that also shows the power of intuitive hypnotherapy. When the situations come, then you have to know how to speak to the above. They know how to know what to bring out and see what is going on, and definitely to just be like a blow on the person's face, and the person is going to say, "Wow, that is the truth. That is what I was expecting," and that would definitely dive the healing and the right treatment the person definitely need to heal him or herself. Thank you so much, Mrs. Carey, for those insights. And I would like to also know, some people might be like, I do not know if it's safe for me. I do not know if it's for children, for teenagers, for adults, and even so for older men. So, from your experience, is intuitive hypnotherapy safe for everyone, or do you think there are some situations where it is not recommended, Mrs. Carey?
I've been doing this for everyone, for children, senior citizens, teenagers, adults. I've been doing this, you know, for I'd say at least 20 years. And I've been voted the best hypnotherapist for Salem, Oregon for the past 14 consecutive years. So it does definitely work. There's 3 types of people it doesn't work for. Is someone on a lot of drugs, someone that has an IQ below 70, and then someone that just doesn't want to be hypnotized, because you can't force anybody to do anything they don't want to do. They have to be congruent with it. And even if you were under hypnosis and I said, like, salads are bad for your health, your conscious mind would kick in and say, no, that's not true. Salads are good for your health. So it would immediately reject that suggestion.
That's very, very brilliant, honestly speaking, Mrs. Carey. That shows that there are also some certain type of people, like people who use drug, and people are not definitely ready to also, change or definitely listen to the situation. It will definitely be more difficult to work with people like that. Thank you so much for the insight, Mrs. Carey. And I also like to know, for some people who would definitely be interested when it comes to this type of therapy, they will definitely to like to go into the practice probably in the coming future. So for those you that could be interested in learning this practice, where do you think they should begin, Mrs. Carey?
To me, the beginning start is what is your intention and why do you want to do it? I mean, are you really here to be of service? Or are you here to be like the corner psychic that's just trying to get money out of you? Because I've literally helped people. I mean, there was one woman that was spending over $1,000 a month on one of those psychic hotlines. I had to help that woman. And so I would say, really, first, what is your intention? And then every time you have a client, you want to set that intention of, I am here to be of service. And please flow through me your wisdom and your guidance for this person. And so you're really looking for intuitive hits, and so this one will make you laugh and will make a lot of your people laugh. I was coaching one lady that I think she lived in Georgia about what, maybe about 13 years ago. And we were talking about her son. And he was married and he had lots of struggles with his wife and stuff. And I started laughing. And she said, "Ooh, you got an intuitive hit, didn't you? What'd you get? What'd you get?" And I said, "I am too embarrassed to tell you what I just got and what they just showed me and said to me." And she's like, "No, I need to know. I need to know." I'm like, "Okay, here we go." They're showing me this two pairs of big brass balls, and your son needs to grow a pair of big brass balls because his wife is just dominating the whole marriage. And she starts laughing and says, "That is too wild because just the other day I said that exact thing to my son. How do you do this?" And I said, "Because they know you better than I do. They agree with you. Yes, he needs to grow a pair because he's not having a pair." I said, "They're literally telling me, she's got him by the balls." And she laughed and she said, "Yes, she does." So it's trusting also when you get those weird hits, and you've got to ask for validation. Because I could have dismissed the whole thing. I could have been like, "No, this is too weird. This is wild. Where the hell is this coming from?" No, I had to trust it and I had to share. So there are times where I will say, "Ooh, that's interesting." And I'll tell the person what I get. And every single time it is like, boom, spot on, spot on, spot on. And but I like to know, is this accurate? Am I what I'm hearing, is this accurate? Sometimes I will see things like, if a person is like stuck on a hamster wheel, I'll see a hamster wheel stuck on it, and I'll be like, "Ooh, you're stuck on this hamster wheel where you doubt yourself over and over and over." And they'll be like, "Yes, I do. How do you know?" And I said, "Because they're showing me this hamster wheel, and that's what that symbolizes." So sometimes they can show you symbolism, like the hamster wheel, the brass balls, um, like you feel like you're drowning in an ocean or you're stuck in a pit. It's where your mindset is at. They'll give you visual things. Sometimes I will feel a person's pain where I'll tell them, "You have a lot of heartache." Or do you get dizzy all the time? I remember making a recording for this young man, this young boy, somewhere in the US. And while I was making it, I kept falling over in my chair, falling over in my chair. And when I asked the parents, I was like, "Does he lose his balance or his state of consciousness sometimes where he thinks he's going to pass out?" And they said, "Yes. How do you know that? We didn't even tell you about this." And I said, "Because when I was connected to him, I was having the same symptoms within my body." So there's many different ways in being intuitive where you can get these, I call messages from, divine spirit. What is it? And and every time you do get those hits, you want to say thank you. You really want to say thank you because you're building a relationship with it. It's not, a dog and pony show. No, to me, this is a sacred spiritual divine connection that you need to honor and you need to trust and you need to go with it. Because there was one time, this will probably shock you also. There was a gentleman that was here to probably about 5 years ago, wanted to stop smoking. And this guy was so dead inside, dead in his voice, dead in his eyes, like so hollow. And I was shown all these horrific things this man did in war because he was a sergeant. And he literally was like, you want him to annihilate a whole village? He would come down with his whole team and annihilate everyone. And I looked at the man and I said, ooh, I just heard that you are extremely dangerous. Is that correct? And he looked at me and he said, I could kill you in seconds and you wouldn't know what happened to you. And I was seriously like 4 feet away from this guy. And I looked at him and they told me, stand your ground. And I looked at him and I said, well, I've met monsters like you. I'm not afraid of you. And he started laughing, just like your look. And he's like, I don't believe you. And I said, oh, I have. I've met horrible narcissistic people. And he's like, really? And then it kind of opened up this doorway because I didn't see him as a threat, but I was keeping this safe ground of open heart communication. And what's odd is this guy loves me. I mean, we're friends now. You would not believe it. I mean, we're friends. And this guy is like, I've only told 3 women in my whole life that I love them. That is my wife, my daughter, and you. And I love you. He's like, I'd die for you. You saved my life. You made me a better man. He's like, the world needs more people like you in it. And so when you have this ability, you really want to use it as being of service to humanity.
I completely agree with you. This thing, even from my own experience, I feel like it's probably something one has to develop, a gift someone has to develop. And when someone has to develop, as you said earlier, one definitely needs to appreciate it with every message he or she is definitely getting from this divine. So it is very important to develop and also give that sense of appreciation and also have a definitely big reason, a very good reason to go into this type of therapy session because it's very spiritual or one of the thing that someone have to definitely develop and build with time. So thank you so much for those insights. Thank you so much, Mrs. Carey. And lastly, Mrs. Carey, there's a question I normally ask during the end of the show. From the forefathers, from the ancestors, from the forefathers, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our forefathers' time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Carey?
We all need to raise our levels of consciousness and get out of fear, hate, anger, greed, power hungry, wanting to manipulate, control people. If we want to survive as a species, we do need to raise our levels of consciousness to be more compassionate, kind, accepting, cooperative, patient, forgiving. Because when all of us make a mistake, what's the first thing we say? Please forgive me. Please forgive me. And if you think about it, if we just raised our levels of consciousness out of what I call 3D into 4D, there would be no war. There would be no homelessness. There would be no starvation or suffering or any of that. People would come together and work in harmony and union instead of separation, instead of, oh, it's I'm out for myself. You can die or whatever. But no, if we're going to survive as a species, we need to raise our levels of consciousness and become decent, kind, humble human beings. I mean, that's what Jesus said, that the meek will inherit the earth. What he meant was the humble people, the kind people. That's what he wanted to teach all of us, is to be better human beings. And how you do that is through raising your levels of consciousness. That is the only way you will enter the kingdom of heaven, is by raising your levels of consciousness. If you listen to anyone that channels like Paul Selig, There's Rebecca is another person. There's even Abraham Hicks, law of attraction. They all talk about raise your vibration, raise your vibration. Our vibration is our consciousness because Dr. David Hawkins did the research on the map of human consciousness. And yes, there are different levels and frequencies, and we have to align in those areas that vibrate at a higher rate to bring peace and harmony to this planet and to all of humanity. So that's the best advice I could give.
Yeah, definitely agree with you, Mrs. Carey. We know that this time that we are with the technology, a lot of people are just, more of with the generation that we are is more of like a greedy self. Everybody want to have something for themselves. I think having a life of more kindness, I should say consciousness, having this kind of unity. Honestly speaking, everybody is going to win when everybody are working together. As
Yeah.
you said, there will be no war, there will be no situations like that. There will be no arguments. Everybody is going to win. Everybody is going to survive. We have to understand that we are only here for the meantime. We should just learn to give ourselves the kindness, give ourselves the appreciation and self-forgiving. I think that is very important. If you can give ourselves that, then definitely that goes on to the next generation and generation. But this time that we definitely need to develop that character. So every single person is going to definitely enjoy the gift this world has given. Not that some certain people will be enjoying and some certain people will not. That is not how the world is meant to develop or be. I want to sincerely thank you for that insight, Mrs. Carey. I also want to sincerely thank you for the time and the opportunity you've given me on speaking on this intuitive hypnotherapy. Thank you so much, Mrs. Carey.
Thank you. And I hope you have a blessed day. And I love the response you just gave. It was beautiful. So
All
thank
right,
you.
all right, Mrs. Carey. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Carey. Bye bye.
Okay. All right. Bye.